Okay, let's go.
All right, let's dive right in, shall we? Today's deep dive is all about the EB2-NIW visa
Oh, yeah.
and, how the 2024 election might
Big one.
shake things up
Absolutely.
big time.
Yeah.
We've got a ton of sources, and they're all kind of focused on,
Right.
one candidate in particular, so we'll be really digging into that
Huh.
side of things. But always remember, there's two sides
Oh,
to
yeah.
every coin, so
Well,
just keep that in mind.
Of course.
Before we get too far down the rabbit hole,
Yeah.
let's just kind of do a quick recap.
Sure.
EB2-NIW visa, golden ticket,
Mm-hmm.
for those crazy talented folks,
The best.
who want to bring their skills here to the U.S.,
Right.
even if they don't have a job offer lined up.
Exactly.
We're talking scientists, entrepreneurs, artists, all those people whose work is considered,
In the national.
in the national interest
interest,
of
yeah,
the
it's-
U.S. So let's unpack this whole national interest idea. Because some of the historical data from this candidate's, previous term
Yeah.
is kind of eye-opening.
Yeah, it really is. During their last term, we saw some pretty big jumps in visa denials.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for H-1Bs, those denials went from just 4% all the way up to 17%.
Wow.
Yeah, and L1s, they weren't spared either.
Oh, no.
They went from 12% denials up to 28%.
That's a huge...
Big changes.
Yeah.
Now, I know those visas aren't exactly the same as the EB2-NIW,
Right.
but they're all in that same, immigration family.
It paints a picture.
It does.
It does. And it kind of feels like maybe the winds are shifting towards,
Yeah,
stricter policies across the board.
possibly. Yeah.
So how could all of this impact the EB2-NIW specifically?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but we can break down some potential impact areas.
Okay.
First up, I'd say get ready for some increased scrutiny.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The bar for what qualifies as national interest, that could get a lot higher. Applicants might need to bring even more evidence to the table
More than before.
when before to really prove that their work benefits the U.S.
Okay. So stricter standards.
Yeah.
Can you give me a concrete example?
Sure.
Like, let's say, I don't know, I'm a researcher working on renewable energy.
Okay.
What would that showing my work's value look like in this new world?
Yeah, that's a great question. In the past, just showing the scientific merit, that might have been enough.
Right.
But now, you might need to directly connect your research to the current administration's goals.
Oh, interesting.
So, let's say this candidate is all about energy independence.
Yeah.
You'd need to show exactly how your research helps achieve that. Maybe even with projections on how it reduces our reliance on foreign energy, right?
So it's about aligning kind of your work with their priorities.
Exactly. It's not just about being brilliant anymore.
Right.
It's about being strategically brilliant.
Right. Okay. So what's the second area? What else do we need to be thinking about?
Processing times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Increased scrutiny often means,
Delays.
delays. Exactly. So yeah, factor that into your plans because you might be waiting a lot longer than you expected.
Okay, yeah. Definitely something to keep in mind. And the third area, this whole
Yeah.
shift in priority
Right.
idea. Can you give me an example of what that might look like for someone, say, working in artificial intelligence?
Absolutely. Let's say, previously, any kind of advancement in AI was seen as good for the U.S.,
Right.
but this administration, they might narrow that focus way down to specific AI applications,
Like what?
like cybersecurity maybe, or
Good.
national defense.
Okay.
And if your work doesn't fit neatly into one of those boxes,
Oh,
it's going to be a tougher sell.
Yeah.
Even if it's groundbreaking.
so it's not just tougher requirements. It's like
Yeah.
what's considered important might change.
It might.
Okay. So for our listeners out there who
Yeah.
are probably thinking, oh my gosh, how do I even approach this?
Right.
What can they do? What are some strategies to, make your applications as strong as possible?
Don't panic.
Okay.
First off, remember those stricter standards for exceptional ability.
Yeah.
Don't just say you have it, show it.
Okay.
Advanced degrees,
Mhm.
certifications, awards, any publications.
Show off.
Anything that makes you stand out.
So show, don't tell, but with like a PhD and a trophy case.
Exactly. And think strategically about those recommendation letters.
Oh, yeah.
You might want to go beyond academics. Think industry leaders, policymakers,
Okay.
people who can connect your work directly to national importance.
That's smart.
Right.
Yeah. So it's about finding people who can bridge the gap between my awesome skills
Yes.
and what they care about.
Exactly. And finally, when you're explaining the substantial merit of your work,
Right.
get specific. Detailed plans, evidence of your potential impact,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even some early findings, prototypes, whatever you've got.
Show them what you've got.
Don't just tell them what you'll do.
Right.
Show them how you'll do it and why it matters to the U.S.
So basically, be proactive and anticipate what they're looking for.
Precisely.
All right. But even with the best prep in the world, the future's still a bit of a mystery, right?
Of course.
I mean, we're just looking at one candidate here.
Right.
What's your final takeaway? How should our listeners navigate all this uncertainty?
Look, you're right. We can't predict the future.
Right.
But staying informed about policy changes, working with some experienced immigration attorneys, and crafting the absolute strongest application possible,
Yeah.
those are just good practices no matter who wins.
Right.
The EB2-NIW is already really competitive,
It is.
so aiming for excellence should always be the goal.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So everyone listening, here's the bottom line.
All right.
2024 election
Mm-hmm.
could bring some big changes to the EB2-NIW world. Be ready for tougher requirements,
Yeah.
longer processing times,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe even a whole shift in what they consider important.
Possibly, yeah.
But most importantly, thorough preparation
Yes.
and a truly amazing application
Absolutely.
are your best friends no matter what happens.
That's right.
One last thought before we sign off. Even with all this potential change,
Yeah.
the EB2-NIW is still a really powerful pathway for talented folks to come here and make their mark on the U.S. Don't let the uncertainty get you down.
Right.
Focus on what you can control.
Yeah.
Build a stellar application and show them the incredible value that you bring. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
We'll see you next time.
Sounds good.